Day one. I'm a little nervous. I haven't picked up anything yet, but it's the day after my birthday and the day after I just launched everything online, so I said I would start today, and now I have to. I have the 2 textbooks I'm going to use here with me, and then I also have the additional materials on my phone. So I have the next 4 hours set aside to kind of do whatever I want. I'll probably see how much time I can spend doing Polish, and try to just use today to organize my workspace, organize my notebook, just kind of settle in and just take my time and not put any pressure on me. But I'm definitely still nervous. And it's kind of weird because I'm really used to having a plan when I study. So I definitely feel in the dark, and I'm not used to that. So we'll see. Let's see how this goes. Okay, off to a slow start. These were all new tools for me except for Michelle Thomas, and I find that usually with new tools you kind of have to just kind of get the flow of it and figure out what's working, what's not working, and how you want to use them and how often you want to use them. So here are my first impressions after day one, relearning my native language. So today's a good example of why I like to get 2 different textbooks normally. I really like Teach Yourself, but I really like them because basically all of these little conversations and all of these amazing little phrases you use are narrated as part of the book. So Teach Yourself is really nice beginner listening practice. Unfortunately, it's a little too easy for me so far. Like, it's kind of breaking down these sentences and I can recognize all of them. But I'm still looking forward to learning some phrases from here, being able to finally speak them and using them with the website. This book, however, is the monolingual workbook I picked up. It definitely feels a little over my head since it's written in Polish, and reading Polish is really intimidating, but it comes with the best website I've ever seen for anything. This is the actual educational book that you do in order to do the workbook. And the website itself has of course now it's not going to work. The website itself has a huge platform. There's all of the online courses that I can sign up for because I put in the code for my book. There's a forum of people using the same books. And then there's also ways where you can book teachers who are familiar with these. So I'm super excited to see what I do with this. I wasn't really planning on working with a teacher this early on. But this platform is just so super cool if it decides to load. So now that I'm finishing up day one, I did have a plan, but I think my flow is going to be 1 dialogue a day of Teach Yourself, as well as putting all of the new phrases and everything I get into Anki. Probably a mini section of this one, which I believe is going to reinforce some of this stuff in Teach Yourself, since Teach Yourself doesn't really have any good exercises. 1 lesson, once I can get it to work, of Mango languages, and 1 little section of Michelle Thomas every single day, plus revising with Anki and some listening. That should bring me up to about an hour and a half of work. So we'll see, because this plan is totally still up for revision. Also today, Mango languages crashed for me, and Michelle Thomas, totally fine, but on my phone, so nothing fun to show you. So we'll see. I'll check in again later this week. Just finished day 3, and this is way harder than I thought it'd be. I'm feeling a lot of things. When I listen to Polish, I feel pretty good because I understand a lot of it, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is my language. But when I try to speak it or write it, even though I'm just by myself, it's like, why don't I know this? Why am I not better at this? I should be memorizing this like right away. I should see it once and then know it. And part of the problem, I think, is that my books aren't really set up as workbooks. I thought I was getting a textbook and a workbook, but really it was more like 2 textbooks. So I'm gonna change my plan a little bit. I need to start applying what I'm reading in my textbooks a little bit more. So I'm going to start Kerstin Cable's vocab course on top of this, which I can use in conjunction with the textbooks, and hopefully start immersing myself in the process of like making the language more. Because I'm definitely hearing the language a lot, and I'm like seeing it if I watch movies or something. But I still don't feel like I really have a place to produce it, since these aren't really workbooks, they're just kind of fast textbooks. So I have the vocab course from a different language I was studying, so I'm going to try applying it more methodically to what I'm studying now. And so I'm starting that today by making a script. I'm going to take some of the new phrases I'm learning, write them all down, and then try to re-scramble them into making like a little speaking script between two imaginary people. And for like different practices like this, I think by myself without investing in anything else, I'll be able to convert these kind of passive educational tools into something that's a little bit more interactive, which is a lot more helpful. I also feel that because I'm just like falling apart right now with how not great I feel about this, I'm going to kind of change my parameters a little bit. And instead of trying to touch the textbooks every single day, which aren't making me feel great, I'm going to lightly use them and review them, but do a lot more immersion with listening practice, movies, podcasts, whatever, and hope that helps me because that makes me feel good. And so I'm gonna kind of follow those moods. Today is day 9 of relearning my native language. I just wanted to do a quick update because I'm not feeling great today. Yesterday, I did a 24-hour reading challenge and I tried reading in Polish for the first time, and it was hard like I expected, but the process is hard. I'm used to that. But y'all, I forgot like how much the first few months of learning a language can mess with your head. Like I'm used to this stuff. But it's just so hard to trust the process when you're first starting. Like once you get to the intermediate level, you kind of just know you just kind of got to keep going with like the things that are working with the vocab, whatever. But like I don't really, it's like I trust myself. Like I know that language learning is possible. I know that language learning works. But with my streak, because of the reading challenge I did yesterday, I broke my streak. And streaks don't matter. But like now I kind of feel like I have to catch up, and I'm just getting kind of like some negative feelings. Like I should be doing more, like I should be going faster, like I should be working harder. And that I know that's not always the case. Like I know, especially in the first few months, like it still seems so abstract to me. And there's so much ahead of me, it just feels like so overwhelming. So I just wanted to sit down and say that in front of a camera. Because like I really don't think that people who consider themselves polyglots or who are multilingual really talk about sometimes like it can just mess with your head. So especially in the first few months, if you're feeling kind of like on and off about it, if you're feeling bad because like you lost a streak or you don't feel like you're doing as well as you should be or working as hard as you should be, like I'll just tell you right now, this is part of the process, especially at the beginning of any language, even if you've learned a few before. So don't let that self-doubt, those weird feelings take over. Like just keep going. It's going to get better. I know that my negative feelings right now on day 9 are going to seem so distant one day. And now I'm gonna have some dinner. I'm gonna sit down and do my little bit of immersion. And then I'm just gonna try to kill it with apps and just try to totally come back from the slump I was in yesterday. And it wasn't even a slump. It was just a day where I did something else. But it really does mess with your head. Okay, I'll check back in soon. Now, I can't exactly leave the US, and my schedule's insane, but I'm trying to get about 1 to 2 hours of Polish learning in a day, not only with books and stuff, not only the stuff I'm charting, which means cramming it into every single corner of every single moment of every single day.
Porozmawiajmy trochę o Twojej metodzie, bo z tego co wiem, to nie jest tak, że z każdym nowym językiem zapisujesz się na kurs językowy do szkoły językowej i kupujesz 50 książek i robisz ćwiczenia, nie?
Używam tej samej metody, to znaczy, że po angielsku nazywa się bilingual translation.
I did it! I made it the first month. Now, I know I've been kind of sharing with you all as I went my ideas, my feelings, and how things were going, but I want to give you my first few takeaways from the first month of relearning my native language. I tracked everything because doing bullet journal style tracking really helps me a lot. It kind of feels like accountability, but then also when I'm feeling bad about how unproductive I'm being, I can look back and be like, that's not true. So my first takeaway is that I'm not going to use my workbooks unless somebody is holding me accountable. My plan was definitely to do a page a day, and that just didn't happen. Apps are way more fun and they help you feel like you're making way more progress, but they leave these like big metacognitive, meta-linguistic gaps. So you can kind of repeat stuff back, but you can't necessarily freestyle with the language and form your own thoughts, ideas, and sentences. My second big takeaway is that my listening could still definitely improve, especially because nobody in my immediate family has lived in Poland for about 30 years. So our Polish is not the same Polish they speak on TV, but watching documentaries was super fun. I definitely started to pick up on new things, learn vocab and context, and just generally feel like kind of good, because month one, like, you shouldn't be able to understand anything in a language that you can't speak. So like, it was also very reaffirming. I also watched a little bit of TV, but it proved way harder than watching documentaries. But I will say, emotionally, it was still pretty hard. I have all these shoulds in my head, like, I should understand this, I should know this off the top of my head, I used to know these words, and I should be speaking correctly. Like, it feels very silly to me to make any errors. But actually, kids almost never use their language perfectly. So it makes sense that my little kid self spoke Polish, but spoke it with a lot of the same little errors a lot of kids do. Most notably, for myself at least, over-regularizing the language, like adding like the same universal rule to everything and forgetting exceptions existed. Now, overall, I am feeling awesome, ale niestety jeszcze nie mówię po polsku. Mam idee, I have ideas i mam sławy. But I mostly just focused on conjugations and rules and a decent amount of vocabulary, so I can't quite put a sentence together yet. So unlike other videos, I'm not going to try to speak Polish for you, just because I literally don't think I can put together a cohesive, I can't speak English either, cohesive narrative for you. And that's okay, because as my awesome linguist friend Suzanne reminded me, having these big goals up front can actually really intimidate us. We'll just keep focusing on what we haven't reached yet versus what we've already done, which is often much more than we think it is. So deciding instead that I'm going to work for half an hour every day is normally a lot more productive than saying I'm going to be able to speak by X date. Although I'm still determined to be able to speak by X date. I'm just going to take a little pressure off and not make this one a speaking video. Ale tak rozumiem better. I understand a lot more now than I did, I think, at the beginning of the month. All right, let's see what happens next month.